The time is now 5:30 and a quorum is present, so I will call this meeting of the Madison Plan Commission of February 27th to order. First, we'll get some information from our technical facilitator.
All right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking your link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which their hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. To members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. First, are there any communications, disclosures, or recusals? Seeing no raised hands, and I do not believe there are any public comments. That's correct. Okay, good. Then we will move to the minutes of February 13th regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from February 13th? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Solheim. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Mendez. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Upcoming meetings, there will be regular meetings on March 13th, March 27th, April 10th, and April 24th. Next, we'll move to our consent agenda. First, I'll read in the agenda item. So agenda item 2, and then 4 is for referral. And agenda items 14 and 15. So on these particular items, staff believes an application has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by the various city departments. The applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition tonight. So my question now of commissioners, would anyone like to take any of the consent items up individually? Seeing none, I will then read those items into the record. So first is agenda item 2, Legistar 75855, amending sections of the Madison General Ordinances to eliminate residential point system for downtown residential 1 and downtown residential 2. And then for referral, agenda item 4 to the March 13th meeting at the request of the applicant, Legistar 75151. And then on the consent agenda, agenda item 14, Legistar 75708, located at 4009 Birch Avenue, 11th Alder District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence. Agenda item 15, Legistar 75709, located at 141 South Butler Street, 6th Alder District, consideration of a conditional use in the urban mixed use district for a mission house. So I will open the public hearing on these items, and since there are no registrants wishing to speak, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Commissioner Cantrell. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Solheim. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion? Okay, I will assume unanimous consent on the consent agenda unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on then, our next item is Agenda item 3, Legistar 75911, amending sections of the Madison General Ordinances to clarify the maximum stories and feet in the downtown height map. And Heather is going to give us an overview of that. Heather?
All right, thank you, Chair. And I should say Katie Bannon, zoning administrator, is here as well for questions that may come up on this item. Wanted to come back to you with this ordinance after we discussed a piece of it at length at our December special meeting. The ordinance before you this evening actually does multiple things within one section of the ordinance. So I want to quickly go through the four items that this ordinance before you corrects or changes within the section of the zoning code having to do with measurement of downtown buildings, measurement of height of downtown buildings. So first, the ordinance allows for some flexibility in the ground floor height or any floor height for that matter, so long as the absolute number of stories and height are still adhered to in a building. It's fine now with this ordinance change if any one certain floor exceeds the maximum floor height that was provided before. And I want to just share an example of this. It's a very realistic example coming to a plan commission near you in the coming months. And it's the Wisconsin Historical Museum project. This is honestly the project that catalyzed this particular aspect of the change. So in a museum, as you can imagine, when you're changing exhibits around, often you need space between the floor and ceiling far exceeding an 18 or 20 foot height limit. You know, for museums, sometimes that floor to ceiling height needs to be 25, 30 feet. Right now, as written, our zoning code doesn't really allow for any single story of a building to exceed a certain height. So one element of the change allows for flexibility there. While it doesn't change the absolute height, doesn't change the number of stories, this would make it so a 5 to 6 story museum could have some flexibility with regard to floor to ceiling heights for exhibits. And it would also pertain to places of worship, gymnasiums, other facilities where that floor to ceiling height must be greater than what's currently allowed. So that's item 1. Item 2 is what we discussed at length at our December special meeting. This change adds an incentive for the inclusion of income-restricted housing downtown. And it does that by allowing for developers who voluntarily commit to a set proportion of their square footage being affordable or income-restricted housing for 30 years to obtain approval for additional stories up to the maximum allowable height. And so, again, this is something that we discussed with the Plan Commission at length in December. Happy to come to questions on this. Katie and I can take those. But that's really item 2. And importantly, what we settled on as far as staff and sponsors are concerned is a commitment by developers who might otherwise be market rate housing developers, but a commitment to dedicate half of their additional square footage, so half of those upper stories, although distributed throughout the building, half of that square footage would need to be attainable at 60% the rent levels of the area median income rents for a period of 30 years. And so they would enter into a land use restriction agreement voluntarily. And we would as a city, see the incorporation of some income restricted housing in the downtown that might otherwise be in a market rate development. Items 3 and 4 are simpler. Item 3, and you'll recall this from your recent review of the St. John's redevelopment proposal downtown. Item 3 removes some pretty tough and sticky regulations from the code with regard to sites where there's a lot of slope on the site. Our code currently requires that the ground floor of a building always has to be within an average of 18 inches of the ground outside the building. And as we saw with a couple applications before you recently, this regulation was really well intentioned, but doesn't work well on sites with a lot of topography. And so this change also removes that requirement while still keeping all of the urban design guidelines associated with downtown development and redevelopment. And then finally, the fourth piece is that it simply provides more clarity on how height of buildings is measured downtown with the inclusion of some graphics in the code and some clarified language. No change in that department, but that's the fourth thing that this ordinance does, is just to provide more clarity in height measurement. We do support this amendment as staff and look forward to any questions you might have following the public hearing.
Thank you, Heather. I will open the public hearing. There are no wait a second. Yes, there is. There's one registrant wishing to speak, Bill Connors, West Main Street, Madison, neither support nor oppose, wishing to speak, representing Smart Growth Greater Madison. Bill, you have 3 minutes.
Chair, just an update. It looks like we're having issues with people with attendees logging in to the meeting right now. And I see that Bill's not on right now. I'm trying to address the issue. But as of right now, I think Bill was trying to get on into the meeting still. So I'm not sure what the next steps of action is, but we've had a few people. If anyone is listening, looks like we've had some success with entering the meeting via phone. But as it is right now, I'm looking into it, but it doesn't look like anyone can log on through the Zoom app.
Okay. What I'm going to suggest is that we move on and come back to this after hopefully you've gotten this fixed or Bill has come in via the phone. And the next item then would be agenda item 5. And I'll read all of these into the record that we will be hearing from staff about all of these at one time. So I'll read in agenda items 5 through 13 into the record, and then hopefully the technical difficulty will be fixed. And if not, we'll hear from Ben Zellers, staff member on these items. Okay, first, agenda item 5, Legistar 75510, amending the City of Madison official map to establish mapped reservations for future streets and highways in the City of Madison to connect Genomic Drive to Mineral Point Road and extend Sharmony Drive between South Rosa Road and Genomic Drive, consistent with recommendations in the adopted Odana area plan. Agenda item 6, Legistar 75535, amending the City of Madison official map to establish mapped reservations for future streets and highways in the City of Madison at West Town Mall and its environs, consistent with recommendation in the adopted Odana area plan. Agenda item 7, Legistar 75517, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 414 D'Onofrio Drive located and 7601 through 7633 Ganser Way, and 7701 through 7717 Mineral Point Road, and 4019 South High Point Road, 9th Alder District, from Plan Development District to Regional Mixed Use District, and creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of the property located at 7801 through 7815 Mineral Point Road, and 7802 through 7878 Big Sky Drive, 9th Alder District, from Suburban Residential Varied 2 District and Commercial Center District to Regional Mixed Use District. Agenda item 8, Legistar 75519, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 23, 36, 53, and 66 West Town Mall, 7017 through 7455 Mineral Point Road, 7230, 73101 through 7357 and 7401 West Town Way, and 448 South Gammon Road, 9th Alder District, from Commercial Center District to Regional Mixed Use District. Agenda item 9, Legistar 75520, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 6502 through 6602 Grand Teton Plaza, 6501, 6601 through 6637 and 6701 Mineral Point Road, and 406 through 414 Grand Canyon Drive, 9th Alder District, from Suburban Employment District and Commercial Center District to Regional Mixed Use District, and creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of the property located at 6405 through 6411 Mineral Point Road and 401 South Yellowstone Drive, 19th Alder District, from Suburban Employment District to Commercial Corridor Transitional District. Agenda item 10, Legistar 75521, substitute, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 6101 Mineral Point Road and a portion of 5922 Research Park Boulevard, 19th Alder District, from Commercial Corridor Transitional District and Mixed Use Center District to Regional Mixed Use District, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of a portion of the property located at 5922 Research Park Boulevard, 19th Alder District, from Mixed Use Center District to Commercial Corridor Transitional District, and creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of a portion of the property located at 5922 Research Park Boulevard, 19th Alder District, from Mixed Use Center District to Suburban Employment District. Agenda item 11, Legistar 75524, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 406 through 440 Science Drive, 11th Alder District, and 431 Catalyst Drive, and 401 and 441 Charmony Drive, 19th Alder District, from the Suburban Employment District to Regional Mixed Use District. Agenda item 12, Legistar 75527, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 5501 through 5601 Research Park Boulevard and 5602 Tokay Boulevard, 19th Alder District, and 621 through 645 Science Drive and 5330 Tokay Boulevard, 11th Alder District, from Suburban Employment District to Regional Mixed Use District. Agenda item 13, Legistar 75528, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 606 through 670 South Whitney Way, 19th Alder District, from Commercial Center District to Regional Mixed Use District. And I believe we do have a presentation on this from Ben Zellers. Ben.
Yes, thank you. I will go ahead and share my screen here. Oops. Okay, I have a fairly brief presentation here tonight on the Odana Area Plan, official mapping and proactive rezoning. Ben Zellers with the Planning Division, so I'll go ahead and dive right in. Just as a quick refresher, the Odana Area Plan was adopted in September of 2021 and covers the area on your screen bounded by Mineral Point Road, Beltline Highway, and kind of the eastern edge of Research Park. The plan covered basically the topics and chapters that are contained within the comprehensive plan. As part of that, official mapping was recommended. Official mapping is governed by Wisconsin statutes and Madison general ordinances. And overall, it reserves and depicts land that the city intends to use in the future for specific public uses such as rights-of-way. Right-of-way reservation was recommended in the Odana Area Plan in two different parts, one in Research Park, the second in the West Town and surrounding area. The recommendation in the plan is Transportation Recommendation 7, which is on page 18 of the Odana Area Plan. One of the reasons, and I'll get into this a little bit more in a few slides, for official mapping and mapping future planned streets was to start to address the very large block sizes that are within this planning area. In Research Park, the block sizes are up to 118 acres. In West Town surrounding areas, up to 172 acre block sizes. And obviously this creates challenges for development and redevelopment, challenges for pedestrians and transit service and things of that nature. So a planned street network and official mapping in some instances were recommended to address those challenges. As a comparison, Isthmus and downtown block size generally is between 2 and 4.5 acres. And certainly as part of this plan, we're not trying to get down to that block size in every instance, but just providing that as a reference for the, like I said, very large block sizes in this area as compared to other areas of the city that were developed earlier. So map 4 from the Odana Area Plan shown on screen, and differentiates between planned street connections for official mapping, which is shown in dark blue, and just planned street connections, which we hope to see as areas develop and redevelop within the Odana area boundary. And as you've probably seen materials for the Plan Commission this evening, Research Park had a request to kind of straighten the official mapping for Charmony Drive to run more east-west as opposed to kind of curving to the southwest. And so there is an alternate in your packet this evening for that. Staff is fine with that recommendation. And in fact, TPPB and BPW both recommended proceeding with that alternate as far as the official mapping. The result of that is really to kind of eliminate that area circled in teal as that shifts to the north. Then the area circled in purple would essentially be viewed as a planned street connection instead of officially mapped street connection. Just kind of zooming in on that detail, the previous version shown on the left, this is the version shown in the plan, and then the one recommended by BPW and TPPB is shown in the right. And the gap in there is to avoid buildings, which is what we've done really throughout the planning area when it comes to official mapping, is to not official map through buildings. Then zooming in on the West Town detail, official mapping shown here, the hash marks just have to do with varied descriptions for these areas. And much of this kind of mirrors existing street access and part of it mirrors the ring road and shared access already. And then there are some other connections that are not overlaid on the existing ring road. So really this, especially in the West Town area, is to establish a framework for future redevelopment to generate a cohesive end result as a result of widely varied property ownership Again, especially in Westtown, where I think there are 16 or 18 different property owners within that very large block. And we know that some of these property owners may opt to proceed with redevelopment on their own timelines. And so we need to, as a city, look towards ending up with a cohesive whole as different property owners move forward with redevelopment at different times. Then this, in the plan, is recommended to proceed, official mapping is recommended to proceed hand in hand with proactive rezoning, each of them being separate approvals by the Plan Commission. And so page 18 of the plan recommends that if the Plan Commission and Council have concerns and choose not to proceed with official mapping, it's recommended that proactive rezoning for those areas not proceed either. And that really kind of speaks to the proactive rezoning boosting the allowed development density and intensity. And if we don't have corresponding planned public street networks or officially mapped public street networks in those areas, we don't feel as staff, and this is included in the plan, that it would be appropriate to proactively rezone without those officially mapped street networks to accommodate the increased intensity. One other aspect is that official mapping will also help create more direct pedestrian and bicycle routes to future bus rapid transit, which is line A on the map here on Mineral Point Road. And then it does boost potential development intensity along portions of Mineral Point Road, going hand in hand again with that BRT routing. Switching to proactive rezoning, the recommendation in the Odana Area Plan is land use recommendation number 3 on page 16. And then there are 7 areas that the proactive rezoning recommendations are split into for your consideration tonight. I'll just recap those really quickly. Area 1, kind of going west to east, proactively rezones from commercial core or commercial center to RMX, also SRV2 and planned development to RMX zoning. CC zoning proposed to go to RMX in Westtown and surrounding parcels. Suburban employment proposed to go to regional mixed use and CCT, commercial corridor transitional. Area 4, mixed use center and CCT to RMX, CCT, and SE. Area 5, suburban employment going to regional mixed use. And then finally areas 6 and 7 going from SE and CC to regional mixed use as well. I'm going to just mention that other than area 7, all of these rezonings are covered by transit-oriented development overlay zoning. So just quickly recapping the approval timeline. This was introduced to council on January 17th, was referred to TPPB and BPW. Both recommended proceeding with official mapping with that tweak in Research Park. And then we're in front of you here tonight, and then this is anticipated then to be in front of Common Council on March 7th. So with that, I will turn it back over to the commission for any questions and discussion.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Before we go to the public hearing on this particular item, we are going to loop back. My understanding is that Bill Connors has been able to connect. And so I have already opened the public hearing on agenda item 3. So we will hear from Bill Connors on agenda item 3, which is the downtown height map. Bill?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. First, Smart Growth has no concerns about the part of the ordinance that gives bonus stories to any development or redevelopment receiving city government financial assistance for affordable housing. It makes perfect sense to maximize the number of stories and number of units in an affordable housing project that is receiving city financial assistance. Second, Smart Growth's concerned about the other major part of the ordinance, the part that provides what appears to be an optional incentive to entice developers to dip their toes, as Heather Stouter put it in a recent meeting, into including some affordable housing units in their projects is what might happen to future projects that have the incentive of additional stories available to them, but choose not to use it, instead choosing to make all the units market rate. If this ordinance is enacted, will the offer of additional stories in exchange for including affordable housing remain optional, or will it become an offer they can't refuse? This might not be a concern given the current makeup of the Plan Commission, but there will be new people on the Plan Commission after April. As recently as March of 2021, the Plan Commission denied a conditional use permit for a large housing project after hearing many speakers and receiving many emails asking the Plan Commission to deny the CUP for a variety of reasons. A common theme of the opponents was the project did not include any affordable housing for students. Downtown neighborhood organizations are on record saying they believe all housing projects in downtown should include some income restricted units. In the future, when dozens of residents are testifying against the CUP for a project that does not include income restricted units, and among the reasons they give is that bonus stories in exchange for affordable housing is available, but the project does not include any income restricted units, will the Plan Commission apply the CUP standards as they usually would? Or will they placate the many loud voices against the project and interpret the CUP standards to deny the CUP? Smart Growth would appreciate any comments from Plan Commissioners about why our members should not be concerned about the optional bonus stories for including affordable housing becoming, in practice, not optional. Smart Growth also is curious how college students, the vast majority of whom are have low incomes, but might have other financial resources available to them, would be determined to be eligible or not eligible for the income restricted units mandated by a land use restriction agreement known as a LURA under the proposed ordinance, excuse me.
Thank you, Bill. That concludes your available 3 minutes. Bill is the only speaker registered to speak. Are there any questions of Bill? Alder Paulson.
I just wanted to, it looked like Heather was maybe raising her hand, and so I wasn't sure if she couldn't raise her hand or if that was just something else. So.
Oh, no. That
Okay.
was something else.
It was
Thank you.
just the 3 minute timing. That's
Okay. Wasn't sure if maybe we've had Zoom challenges tonight, so I just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to flag us down.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fernandez.
Yeah, thank you. Bill, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your comments correctly. Your concern is that if there is the possibility for the developer to apply for extra stories based on building affordability, and they choose not to do that, that we would then be more inclined to turn down their original proposal? Is that a fair summary of what you're saying?
Bill?
Yes, Commissioner Fernandez, I think it's quite a fair summary of it. Yeah, the concern is that if you're, 30, 40, 50, 60 people speaking and, dozens, maybe hundreds sending emails saying, don't approve this project that needs a CUP. And one of the things they're harping on is that it doesn't include affordable housing units. And they say, look, they could get bonus stories if they provided some affordable housing units. Our concern is that overwhelming pressure from the public might sway plan commissioners to find a way to say no to the CUP.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Bill? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you. The question I have, and I know we talked about this at our special meeting, so you have defined actually a level of affordable housing that you would consider to be the threshold to gain this. Is that in conversation with the development community? And would you say you have some confidence that people will find that attractive? And I suppose the corollary to that is if not, are we prepared to change that standard in some way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we did meet with 3 different development experts, developers. One focuses on affordable housing. Another has done both in Madison, affordable and market rate, and a third has only done market rate, relatively small to mid-scale housing thus far. And what we tried to do is find a number, particularly an income level for which the economics can work. We as staff, in talking with other sponsors and the mayor, I don't think there was any comfort level for anything less than 30 years as far as the duration of the commitment. So we had a 30-year commitment that dovetails really nicely with our park impact fee remittance program, where if you dedicate affordability for 30 years, you don't need to pay the park impact fees. So we came to that conclusion. We realized that as staff and policymakers, the sponsors needed a low enough level of income so that we felt like something was being achieved, and landed at 60% of the area median income as being that rent. And then our third challenge, and this is where we really gained a lot from the few developers that we met with, was, well, how much of that additional square footage needs to be dedicated at this level? And exploring just roughly exploring the numbers, it seemed that a dedication of roughly half that additional square footage gained through the bonus at 60% area median income for 30 years does make some economic sense based on the rents. It's enticing enough as far as profitability to pursue. Now, will this work for every developer? Absolutely not. Again, as we mentioned in December, I think if this can work for 1 to 2, 3 projects a year, that's great. Importantly, the ordinance, and as I understand it now, it's widely supported. The ordinance also includes that same bonus for the typical affordable housing development that does have city funds assigned to it. But we wanted this to do 2 things at once: attract market rate developers to include voluntarily agree to this long-term commitment in order to incorporate some additional square footage. And then also completely, want to say that, regardless of that, rewarding the truly affordable housing development with additional bonus stories makes sense. So that is still within the ordinance as well.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Fernandez?
Yeah, absolutely. All I can say is thank you for, as always, doing your homework and explaining it very clearly. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I second that. Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion? Commissioner Cantrell.
I will move that the Plan Commission forward Register 75911 to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Fernandez. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I think these are good amendments and one amendments that we've talked about before, and especially the affordable housing component that we've added in this ordinance change. To address Bill Connor's point, that I think it's a good point, but I think that the Plan Commission can't and should not mandate that that developers get bonus stories to provide for affordable housing if they choose not to. And I think that that this provides the incentive for developers to do that. But not all developers are in the affordable housing game. Yes, we need affordable housing. And I think that this amendment hopefully adds, like Heather says, a few buildings each year and several units each year to our inventory. But the Plan Commission should not mandate that developers go through this incentive if they choose not to. So I would hope that the future commissions heed that. But thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other comments, input? Alder Heck.
Thank you. I wanted to first say I agreed with everything that Commissioner Cantrell said, but I wanted to add also concerning Mr. Connor's concern about let's call it overwhelming public comment on development proposals. And while I understand his concern, I do think that certainly this version of Plan Commission is capable of wading through the noise and addressing our standards of approval and not being swayed by simply whose voices are the loudest. And I hope that future plan commissions will also have that skill, but with the guidance of staff and others, I don't think that will be a problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. I echo what Alder Heck and Commissioner Cantrell just said. In a lot of ways, we are not allowed to consider affordability when we are evaluating. And to be honest, in a lot of communities I've worked in, that helps me on the flip side in terms of your project can't be disapproved because you're proposing affordability. We're considering it from the other way around. And, even if we want to see affordability, that's not something that we have control over. And I think that staff does a great job of communicating that and making it clear to commission staff, so that will continue moving forward. I also just want to give props to staff for all of the work that they put into this. A lot of this, there's so many variables that go into this that's really going to come down to the right project with the right developer where this makes sense. But to me, it is absolutely worth it to get creative and add some more affordable housing units downtown. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else before we come to a vote? Seeing no raised hands, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, now going back to agenda item 5. We will take any public comments from, like we do on development proposals for all of these, and there is only one, I believe, which is for agenda item 6. Eric McLeod, East Main Street, Madison, opposed, wishing to speak, representing Madison Joint Venture, an affiliate of CBL and Associates Properties. Eric, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm Eric McLeod, and I represent CBL, the owner and operator of the Westtown Mall. And I'm here to address the proposal to officially map public rights-of-way on the Westtown property. We've provided the city with 2 letters concerning this official mapping proposal. The first letter was sent back in July of 2021, and we addressed our legal concerns related to officially mapping public roads through an existing developed commercial property. The second letter we sent just last week simply encouraged the Plan Commission to remove the Westtown portion of the official mapping proposal, noting the negative impacts on Westtown's ongoing and future development plans. I won't restate the contents of those letters. I hope you've had an opportunity to review them, but I would like to offer the following additional comments for your consideration. Westtown Mall first opened nearly 52 years ago in the fall of 1970. During those 52 years, Westtown has served the people of this community, and it has served them well. Retail shopping outlets and malls in particular have faced numerous challenges over the years, but Westtown has continued to succeed by responding to market demands and delivering what Madison residents want. And key to that success has been Westtown's ability to remain flexible as it develops new shopping and dining opportunities. Officially mapping future roads through the Westtown property will greatly restrict that flexibility and threaten Westtown's ability to respond to an ever-changing market. Simply put, a successful Westtown Mall is good for Madison. Westtown provides increased opportunities for Madison residents to shop locally rather than ordering more and more products online through Amazon and otherwise. The stores they shop at employ local residents. There are approximately 2,500 employees who work for businesses at the Westtown Mall property today. And indeed, growing up on the southwest side of Madison, my first part-time job during high school was working at a shoe store in Westtown Mall. Westtown is on the move, it's growing, and it intends to continue to serve this community for many years to come. The official mapping proposal on the Westtown property will harm those efforts, and we strongly encourage you to reject that portion of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. No, there are no other registrants wishing to speak, so we will go to questions. Are there any questions of Eric? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Alder Heck.
Thank you. This is either for Ben Zellers, and I see City Attorney Mike Haas is also on the line, so they can decide who wants to answer this. Obviously interested in what we heard in public comment and the written comments that were submitted both 2 years ago as well as this week. What is your interpretation of the city's legal standing, I guess, in terms of what's referred to as a taking when we have mapped streets that go right up to the edge of an already developed property? Are we on solid legal standing in state statute? I realize there was some communication about that in 2021, but I just wanted to hear your opinion concerning this particular item.
Well, that sounds like a legal question, so we will turn to Attorney Mike Haas. Mike?
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Oops, now we can't. Hold on. Okay, try again. You keep muting for whatever reason. Okay, try now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to mute the phone. Sorry, I was having Zoom audio issues. Is that okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
We have looked at this question, and as Attorney McLeod indicated, there was some conversation about this issue in 2021. Assistant City Attorney John Strange looked at it in some depth, and he concluded that that this is not an unconstitutional taking merely by indicating right-of-way on the official map. There is some possibility that it could turn out to be a taking if the property owner subsequently attempts to build or obtain a building permit in the right-of-way area, and there are substantial damages to the property owner. But the courts have recognized that this official mapping authority, it's established in the statutes and in our ordinances, and it is used by municipalities throughout the state. So in reviewing what Attorney Strange put together and reviewing Attorney McLeod's communications again today, I don't have any reason to reverse the conclusion that John Strange made, that this would be a valid use of the official mapping authority of the city.
Thanks. And just a follow-up question, if I may. Excuse me. I read about the role of the Zoning Board of Appeals in if the property owner in which this official mapping were to occur were to be denied a building permit, that they could go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask for a variance. And is that a step that would be necessary before it were to go to the courts, if they were to pursue that, in your mind?
Yes, that's my understanding, is that the appeal process would be to the Zoning Board of Appeals and then to the courts.
Okay, thank you. Those were my questions.
Okay, thank you, Alder. Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you. Somewhat related question. So should the applicant or should some owner there propose a building that encroaches on that official mapping, is there some flexibility in the official mapping? In other words, would it be fair to say that the developer, the owner, could propose a small shift in that official mapping, continue to honor the spirit of that in creating, reasonable sized blocks and a road, but move it slightly? Or would you say that once mapped, it really can't be moved?
It looks like Heather would like to take that. Heather?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So it would take a subsequent action from the Plan Commission and Council to basically amend that precise location of the officially mapped future street. But yes, and we've said that to other parties in the Oscar Mayer area, for instance, when we were working on official mapping, there was some level of ambiguity, some unknowns about exactly what at that point MG&E wanted to do in the future, and certainly on the Oscar Mayer site in general. And what we're able to say now is that the official map lays out the intended future rights of way, but they can be changed by a future action by the Plan Commission and Council. And usually that would happen in conjunction with a plat proposal that comes before the Plan Commission and Council. And I think that some of the things the Plan Commission and Council will be thinking about is, well, does this slight shift still achieve the same level of connectivity that was the intent in the plan? And if it does, my sense is that staff could support it, future Plan Commission and Councils could support those small shifts. But in cases like this particularly, and with Oscar Mayer, which is still fresh in some of your minds and fresh in ours, we need to lay out that structure, those bones to the future redevelopment area in order for any puzzle pieces to start fitting together. It brings certainty to the city. It brings a sense of certainty to the property owner and anyone they might be working with to purchase all or part of their site. It really provides that full picture of what this puzzle should look like in the end. And it's really necessary in a lot of cases where things might happen site by site over time. You need that kind of common thread to pull things together. So I hope that answers the question and maybe over answers it.
Thank you, Heather. Commissioner Cantrell.
I have a couple of questions, one for staff. There are a number of streets within the East Town, or the West Town area here that are being officially mapped. Did staff directly meet with the property owner to discuss these? Are there some of these that are the most critical and others that are least critical? And, I understand that, the block issues and we want to make sure that we don't have these huge blocks, but there does appear to be, a number of streets planned within this one. I couldn't remember, and I should have looked before the meeting, what we did at the Easttown area in the neighborhood planning and that. But anyway, that's a question for Heather or Ben. And then I have a question for the city attorney.
Ben, would you like to take that one from your leadership with the plan itself?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So really for that area, we feel that the ones that are shown are all important, I guess I would say. And I think it really comes back to that diversity of property ownership. I think a lot of people, when they think of Westtown, think of not only the main mall itself, but also the big box stores that run along the west side of that area. But in reality, there's a wide diversity of property ownership. Most of those big box stores are owned by separate entities. In fact, the former Sears, kind of current Dave & Buster's, Hobby Lobby areas owned by a separate entity as well. So it really kind of comes back to that diversity of property ownership being a major reason why we have more streets officially mapped in that area, in that kind of that grid connected pattern.
Do you have a map of property ownership in this area?
Yes, I can try to find that. If you want to ask your other question, we can circle back if that makes sense. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. My next question is for the city attorney. In reviewing Attorney McLeod's letter, he kind of differentiated official mapping in developed areas versus cornfields, undeveloped areas. And we have two distinct ones on tonight's meeting. The research park is a mapping in pretty much a cornfield. This one is different. It's mapping, not touching buildings, not quite touching buildings, but going through parking lots, which in reviewing the former city attorney's letter, that's probably fine, and it's not a big issue for continued use of the parking lots and access ways because official mapping allows that to occur. But the Easttown area is pretty much, I think most people would consider developed. And obviously we're seeing infill sites and those sorts of things happen. And I understand staff's position about protecting those future right-of-ways. But again, could the city attorney or whomever address the issue of areas of applying official map to developed sites versus those that are more undeveloped? That are two examples on our agenda tonight.
Mike Haas, can you take that?
Sure. I haven't seen any, I haven't read all the court decisions regarding official mapping, but I haven't seen anything that makes a distinction that that lessens the city's ability to do official mapping on developed sites.
Okay. Thank you.
I have the property ownership map in that area if you
Thank you
to see that. So this shows kind of different property ownership by different color within the greater Westtown area. And so you can see really a number of those pads, those big box pads on the left, different property ownership. The JCPenney is under different ownership, and that other area that I mentioned to the southeast under different ownership as well. And many of these gain access from the the ring road,
Right.
which is, has restrictive cross-access easements, and in some cases, the proposed official mapping overlaps that ring road area
Okay.
to mimic some of the access that is already provided.
Do some of these? I'm assuming that kind of the proposed streets that you've identified official mapping somewhat aligns with these property ownerships. For example, the big boxes along the west side of this area. There's a proposed north-south street fronting those. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Any further questions, Commissioner Cantrell?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Heather, did you have your hand up? Did you?
I will say one more thing, and I think that map was a really good image to kind of show the complexity that we're dealing with. But I think what I want to share is that the official map is concerning to some property owners. Obviously, we've heard that tonight. We've heard that before as well. But in these sorts of cases, we as a city, we may never see a developer come in and aggregate all of that property for a master redevelopment of an entire regional mall area. And what the official mapping does is it provides at least a framework by which individual property owners maybe even subdivide their property and sell to another property owner to develop what could be an 8-story building by right now under the TOD zoning in the regional mixed use district. That could not happen without knowing where those streets are going to go. And so on one hand, it's an enormous development opportunity, even though it can be perceived as hamstringing a current property owner. But I just want to offer some balance there that really by forecasting where these streets are going to go, we're making it possible for redevelopment to happen on a parcel by parcel basis.
Thank you, Heather. Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you. I think this is a question for Heather as well, but I was very impressed by what the research park did, which is to look at the plan, look at what was officially mapped, agree with the overall thrust of what was going on, but give some very cogent reasons why this would work better for us, including running the road right into an existing building, recognizing that, in the long term, that's going to be redeveloped. I just thought it was a very admirable way they approached, they understood. So my question is, was Westtown given the same opportunity, or did they come forward with any alternatives of where those roads might be better placed for their long-term interest, while still agreeing with the overall public interest in providing that network?
Ben, that sounds like one for you.
Sure. I've not seen any alternative proposals from anyone aside from Research Park for officially mapping in the Odana area.
Heather.
Yeah, I think to add to Ben's response, we did meet with the main property owner that was kind of shown in blue on that image, CBL, a few different times while the planning process was happening. And honestly, I think we had productive discussions with CBL about their holdings in both Westtown and Easttown. My sense is that, the perception and probably reality is that the Westtown Mall will be here much longer, perhaps. And so there might be greater concern about officially mapping in proximity to the Westtown Mall building itself. But I think, I will not speak for CBL, of course, but I think CBL does see the long-term opportunity within their holdings on both sides of the city.
Thank you, Heather. Are there any other questions of staff? Any other questions of staff? Then I would be looking for a motion on agenda item 5. Commissioner Cantrell.
Okay, agenda item 5 deals with the research park. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. I recommend that the Plan Commission forward Legislature 75510 to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepard. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, and I just want to clarify that this is for the amended street alignment.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
Agreed to by staff and recommended by that property owner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you want to say anything else, Commissioner Cantrell?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Mendez.
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to disclose that University Research Park is affiliated with UW-Madison, which I am employed at, but that will not affect my vote on this matter.
Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Anything else on this before we come to a vote? Seeing no raised hands, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Motion passes unanimously. I am looking then for a motion on agenda item 6, and this is the official mapping of Westtown. Commissioner Cantrell.
I will also recommend that the Plan Commission forward Legislature 5535 to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Fernandez. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, just briefly. I do think the Easttown and Westtown situations are different, but they're very similar. Also, the city is taking a very proactive view of the Westtown area, and I think as a city we have to do that. I think that official mapping the proposed streets, we have shown at least that we've provided flexibility. If there's a development that comes about and some alignment has to be or is proposed to be adjusted, staff and the Plan Commission, as well as the council, has been supportive of those slight adjustments. And I think that we need to provide flexibility, but also we need to provide accountability, and we need to show where we want to see future streets to be located. And I think that that should provide the property owner some at least view of what the city has in mind. And I think that we're trying to protect their value and our development potential as well. And I think that the official mapping does that. And I'm hoping that the developer, the property owner, will actually see that in the long term. So I'm hoping that this will work, and I believe that it will. And that's why I'm recommending it be forwarded to the council with approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other comments about this? Commissioner Fernandez.
Only to say that I support this strongly. If there were not flexibility built into this, I would have serious concerns. But it does seem that the door is open for the mall to expand in many different ways that are consistent with this, and to make the adjustments if it's not consistent. So I think there's an important overriding public interest here in getting that mapping in place. And if there turns out to be a detailed legal question, well, that's not, in my opinion, that's not Plan Commission's job to resolve that. Let's hope that that's can be resolved in a much more mutually beneficial way. But I strongly support this.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Anything else before we come to a vote? Seeing no raised hands, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next item on which we need a motion is agenda item 7. Commissioner Cantrell.
Yes, I will again recommend that Legislature 75517 be forwarded to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepard. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Only by saying this and all the other ones that we have on the agenda tonight on our mapping of the Odana Road Neighborhood Plan are consistent with the plan, and the recommendations that were in the zone districts that we're proposing are consistent. So that's why I'm recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you. Just probably a small question of staff. Could you give us a real thumbnail description of the difference between a CC and RMX? What is that going to permit what is RMX going to permit that CC did not? Just briefly. I know I could have boned up on this myself, but thank you.
Okay, I'm just pausing there. So, in a sense, a lot. RMX, regional mixed use, is the city's most intensive zoning district outside of the downtown area. And so, post approval of transit-oriented development zoning, in many of these RMX areas, one would be able to move forward with an 8-story building that may have residential units, commercial uses, or a mix thereof by right as a permitted use. And so it's going from commercial center, which is also a very open zoning district, but really plays out as kind of a low intensity, auto-centered development pattern, to a much more urban, mixed use, residential, flexible zoning district. So I think it's by far the most intensive zoning district outside of the downtown area.
Thank you, Heather. Are there any other comments on this before we come to a vote? Seeing no raised hands, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, we are on to agenda item 8, and I would be looking for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
I'll recommend that the Plan Commission forward Legislature 75519 to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepard. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to? Okay, thank you. Are there any comments before we come to a vote? Seeing none, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 9, looking for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
I'll recommend that Legislature 75520 be forwarded to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepherd. And I will assume unanimous consent. I'm having a little bit of problem with my screen here. Hold on. Okay. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hand, the motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 10, looking for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
I'll recommend that Legistar 75521 be forwarded to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
And is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepherd. Did you wish to speak to your motion?
No, thanks.
And anybody want to comment, speak to this motion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. A motion for agenda item 11. Commissioner Cantrell.
I'll recommend that Legistar 75524 be forwarded to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepherd. Anyone want to speak to this motion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 12. Need a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
I'll recommend that Legistar 75527 be forwarded to the Common Council with the recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepherd. Anyone want to speak to this motion? Seeing no raised hands, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 13, we need a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
I will recommend that Legistar 75528 be forwarded to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepherd. Does anyone want to speak to this motion? Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to this motion?
Yes, I would just like to thank staff for all its excellent work, Ben and all the other individuals in the planning department on the Odana Road plan and proactive zoning and official mapping in this area. I think they've done excellent work. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Cantrell. And I think we see some nodding heads to second that comment. So thank you very much. Any other comments before we come to a vote? Seeing no raised hands, I will assume unanimous consent unless there is a raised hand to object. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are on to business by members. Any business from any members? Then we will move to the Secretary's report. Heather, you're up.
All right, thank you again. I'll mention just a few main items for each of our upcoming meetings. We have March 13th. I think the main item will likely be 1601 to 1617 Sherman Avenue, which would be a demolition and a new 300 plus unit set of buildings on these properties, just right by the Hara River. And then also consideration of a slight increase to the number of chickens allowable as an accessory use, which should be fun. And then looking forward to March 27th, the main discussion item on that agenda will likely be the redevelopment proposal for the current Red Caboose childcare site at 654 Williamson Street. And I think that's where I'll leave it. Thanks so much for your service and energy.
Okay. Thank you. So I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Cantrell, seconded by Alder Paulson. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. See you on March 13th. Thank you.
Yeah.